Luka Nation, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Uh, we're going to be doing our 10 shows, 10 guests, 10 days segment. And we have someone that I guarantee you guys know. You listen to his content all the time. Sunday evenings, he does some of the best Saturday lives. JLee. And here's what I want to get into, because we were just talking about this a little bit off screen too. National was amazing. People left invigorated, but we don't want to have that like post-national lull, right? We want to make sure that we continue with the optimism, the confidence moving forward in the hobby, because I think a lot of people did leave invigorated, just as you said. So I'm curious, before we get into the show, before we get into any segments, did you have a takeaway? Did you have a vibe? Did you pick up on anything on the national that you wish people who might have not attended would be able to take away and also kind of enjoy that enthusiasm?
Yeah, man. And first of all, thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. Love what you guys are doing. Lucas Tigers and Bronze. Oh my, it's really an honor. But yeah, Andrew. First of all, I loved the show. I had such a great time. The energy. My biggest takeaway, and I know it's gonna sound cliche, but it's just the fact of the matter is that it's the people, guys. It's the people that we had the first opportunity in 2 years, or a year and a half for a lot of people, to actually meet in person. People that we've been conversing with, we've been interacting with, we've been messaging with online, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, for the first time in so long. And the opportunity we just had to really cement these relationships, to really turn them from like online virtual, we communicate through PMs, to true friendships, to real relationships, to me, worth a lot more than the cards. And a huge benefit. You didn't have to go to the show. If you went to the show and you didn't have money to buy cards, like, our dollars don't go as far as they did 2 years ago now. So, you could have still come out of there with intangible rewards that would have made your travel investment well worth it. The opportunity to grow our networks and just, again, build these relationships is something I'm super grateful for.
Cage, I don't know if you felt this, and this was kind of my impression. Jeremy, we're just talking about this, and coincidentally, the Olympics are going on. It felt kind of like an Olympic village, right? Like, you had the convention center where everything would happen during the day, but anywhere you went into town, Cage, I know you spend a lot of time in Morton's and at the clubs right around there, but anywhere you went in town, it was kind of all central, right? And the crowd there was people that are attending the national. And some of my most fun moments were the lobby at Lowe's, the lobby at the Hyatt, the little happy hour, Blake Jameson's event where we got to meet you, JLee. That was my favorite. Kind of had like an Olympic Village feel to it.
Yeah, for me too. I mean, I was blown away by the Lowe's hotel lobby. That was in a more confined space, but that was more cluttered. That was busier than the national itself. I walked in there like, I don't know what time it was, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night on the Thursday, and you literally had to step over people to get from one place to another. Same thing with the Hyatt lobby, especially that, the Card Collector 2 Trader Night. I thought that was supposed to go till 9 o'clock. I walked into that place before seeing you guys upstairs there, and it was the same thing in the main lobby there. People just scattered everywhere. But, you talk about the Olympic Village thing, which kind of segues for me into something I've been thinking about recently, which is that this whole hobby, this hobby's awesome. It's community. It's sports, it's culture, but it's a real subculture to me. It's a subculture to the extent that I feel like the hobby has everything that any subculture has except its own cuisine. And even then, you could say, well, we do have a cuisine. We got that crappy card show food that you can get at the canteens or whatever. But not to mention the good stuff, like Cage at Morton's, or you got Capitol Grill, you got Gibson's. There's all that good stuff, which I had the pleasure of having a nice fillet at Capitol Grill one night. But outside of that, it's truly a subculture that then gathers at this national convention once a year, similar to an Olympic Village, which I've never been to, but I can only imagine, where everything's confined. You don't need anything else. It's all right there.
So Jeremy hosts Sports Card Live, and I didn't misspeak, right? It was Sunday nights you host this?
No, it's actually Saturday nights. I've been doing it. I've been doing Saturday nights for about a year and a half. It's called Sports Cards Live, and they're live streaming really like long form interviews with, as I say, with industry insiders, passionate collectors, and content creators.
So we're like
Guys,
6 minutes in. Don't beat yourself up too much, Andrew. I haven't spoken yet, but I will come to your rescue. You magically somehow got both Saturday and Sunday in there. What you said was he does a great Sunday night of Saturday lives. So you got
It's true.
You made sure that no matter what, you covered it. If it was Sunday or Saturday, you were right. You got it. So it worked out perfectly. So
I like the hedge.
It was fantastic. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that going forward. If you don't know what day it is, just say both. You know, you can't be wrong. You know, you're half right or half wrong.
So Jeremy's interviewed people like Ken Goldin, DJ Ski, Dr.Beckett, Patrick Bet-David, Nat Turner, so many more. What made you want to start? You know, let's backtrack a year and a half. What made you want to start this show?
Yeah, I didn't start out with the goal of having an interview show or interviewing that caliber of guest. But what happened was, if you go back to March of 2020, the pandemic was really just upon us, and word was leaking that there wasn't going to be a national. And on Instagram, a guy by the name of Justin, who goes by 610 Sports Cards, he did a virtual card show where you could just basically put your name on the list. He'd put it out on Instagram, and you'd go live at a certain time on Instagram and show your card. So I did that, and I did some deals, and I got some really good feedback on it. And then I wanted to then sell some vintage graded hockey cards. And I thought, okay, where am I going to do this? And I do not enjoy the scanning listing process, whether it's doing it on Facebook, Instagram. Instagram's easier, but Facebook or eBay, I just do not like the selling process. So I thought, well, it'd be cool if I could just go live in one of the Facebook groups. So I contacted a vintage hockey group. They said, yeah, you can go live and do that. Just don't show anything post 1989. No problem. I went on for about 2 hours. I just kind of said, I have this card, this card, this card. I'm talking to people that are making comments. Had really good feedback on that. And then I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be cool if there would be a Facebook group where all you do is stream your live stream show and tell, basically, instead of having to post pictures and scans. And so I created a group, and the name Sports Cards Live was available. So I grabbed it. And then I thought, oh, I better grab YouTube. I went there. It was available. So I grabbed it. And then it was like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this channel? And I thought, well, maybe I'll do my first show, and I'll grab someone to come on with me. And I've been friends with Carvin Chung, who, invented Exquisite in the Cup. We've been friends since like 2008. And I called him up and said, hey man, I'm doing this show. Do you want to come on and be my first episode? He's like, yeah, we can do that. And at this point, he was known, but he was, compared to today, he wasn't as well known amongst the Instagram community as he is today. So he came on with me, and my thoughts were, if I'm going to do this, I want to start out with a bang, and I also wanted to be able to appeal to the basketball crowd, not just the hockey crowd, which, I'm in Canada. I collect all sports, but I'm kind of known as being a hockey guy. I thought I want to reach out, and I want to appeal to those basketball guys. Bringing on the inventor of Exquisite, it's a great way to do it. So he came on happily, and we had a great show. And then from there, I kind of was like, oh, I guess I better find a guest for the next show. And I've been in the hobby for like 40 years. And in 2012, I acquired a message board website called hobbyinsider.net, which I was a member of. The Beckett message boards were the community up until about 2003 for the hobby, the online community. And in 2003-04, Beckett shut down their message board. So all the collectors had to find other homes on the internet. The baseball and football guys found Sports Card Forum. The basketball guys found Freedom Cardboard. The hockey guys went to Hobby Insider, along with myself. Owner was opening a pub in British Columbia, needed some money, reached out to me. I bought the site from him. And so that kind of, opened up some relationships with some industry insiders. And so when I started my show, Sports Cards Live, I was able to kind of, draw on a lot of those relationships to bring in some high caliber guests. And after the Carvin episode, it just went from there without any intention of doing it. It totally organically became what it's become today. There's the story.
I've listened to a few of your episodes, and I try not to listen to a ton of content out there, because I always say I want to be as original for our community as possible. If I just kind of regurgitate what other people say, they could just go listen to them. But I think you have a real knack for hosting. You have a real knack for kind of bringing out the best in your guests. And I think people should go and listen to some of those early early day OG episodes. I always think
Oof.
back to like, what was that first episode like, right?
I don't
That's
go back
interesting.
Andrew, sorry, I don't go back and watch. I can imagine how much I would cringe if I watched my early episodes. I don't watch any of them because I'm just, you just don't want to. I don't want to start becoming self-conscious of what I'm doing. I'd rather just keep on going and let everyone else decide if it's good or bad.
It's all part of the process. You're getting better. You get better every episode you do, you get better. But I don't go back either.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't go back either. But people do. I had somebody message us last week. He's like, you know what? I had a lot of time on my hands. I went back to the beginning and listened to him. I'm like, wow. In the beginning, we didn't know anybody was going to listen. I mean, the numbers on some of those first couple of them were like pretty low. It was basically people in our towns and our families.
Yeah, I have the same thing, Cage. I have some people that they discover you all of a sudden because of a certain episode. The Nat Turner show I did brought me a lot of new viewers. And then I've had a couple guys reach out and say, yeah, I'm now going back to the beginning. Well, I mentioned earlier, my shows are long form and they can be intimidating. I don't have 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I think the big reason is because when you go to my YouTube channel, every video is like at least an hour and a half. That takes a lot of guts to click on that and commit for an hour and a half. So, that's I think is one of my bigger challenges. But if anyone's going to go back in time and start from the beginning, I've got about 150 episodes. That's like 300 hours that people are committing to. And I'm like, whoa, are you sure you want to do that? But, obviously you appreciate any time someone likes what you're doing. It's great feedback. It makes you feel good.
You've met a ton of people through your show. Who was one person at the show that you were really excited to meet and that you got a chance to meet? At
the show, dude, that's a tough question.
I know. We put people on the spot on the show sometimes.
Person I want.
Usually it's me. Now, guys, he's going to come up with a name. That does not mean that the person he doesn't select, that he's insulting you in any way. He's not. We're forcing him to pick one person. Maybe it's somebody he didn't expect to meet.
God.
Maybe it's somebody that surprised him with how awesome this person was. That doesn't mean that the rest of you that he met are any less awesome than this person. So everybody, don't get butthurt.
I'll give you an example of mine. So just through serendipity, actually it was at an event that Collectible put on. I met a guy that a lot of people know as Bagels to the Wax, but his name's Vadim. And we connected over a year and a half ago on Mercari, where I was trying to buy his silver Zion. And a year and a half later, I get a chance to connect with this guy serendipitously at a party. So stuff like that. It's not always, the biggest name and any of that. It's just we've interacted online and now we got a chance to meet. So I'll turn it over to you, Jay.
I mean, can I go with more than one? Because there are a couple of people so people that all the guests that I've had on the show that I hadn't met in person, of course, were wonderful to meet. It was really nice to meet Jean McLeod from Arena Designs and to hear that she's coming back and going to be designing cards for Upper Deck. I'm super excited about that. I love what her and Earl, her husband, did in the 90s, of course. It was nice to meet her on the Wednesday night at the Card Ladder event, along with Nat Turner, meeting him in person for the first time after having him on the show. That meeting Ken Goldin in person was pretty cool. But as far as, non industry people, I'd say there's a couple guys that I've met online who I became really good friends with. One of them is Rodman Martinez. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Rodman's PC on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
He's somebody I have a great relationship with, and it was just awesome to meet him in person. And the other is Frankie Gonzalez, who's been on my show. Another guy who, we've just all the personal communications on Instagram over the past year, taking in seeing these guys on other people's content, having them on my show, and then being able to just do that bro hug. I mean, that first bro hug is it's important and it's meaningful, and it just furthers the friendships.
Cage, we had a top-notch bro hug. We actually captured that bro hug on video and in pictures.
There you go. First time we ever met was at the show. You know that? It's pretty crazy.
I heard you guys mentioning that before. I mean, for you guys who have like almost 400 episodes under your belt and never having met in person, that's really a unique scenario to today's world, especially on the what seems to be the closing chapter of hopefully of a pandemic. Where else do you get to experience that? So that's pretty neat for you two. I'm happy for you guys, and impressed with what you guys have done. So,
We got a lot of mileage out of it, but now we can't because we finally met. Like I can't use that anymore.
It's all downhill from here.
We need a new shtick. We need a new shtick.
I gotta ask, do you guys even like each other now?
I like him way more. He can work a room, and I'll tell you, he has a big personality, but he has a bigger heart, and that's what's cool. You got to see that firsthand at the show.
See, now here's the problem, Jeremy. So
you don't have to say nice things about me.
He got to go first, and when he gets to talk about me, like think of how awesome it is. See how easy it is for him to say nice things about me because I'm that awesome. Now, if I follow, no matter what I say, it's gonna pale in comparison because no one's as awesome as I am. He may be the second best person in the world, but it's gonna be second to me. So no matter what I say, I'm screwed now. Look what you did, Jeremy. You set me up. We tried to set you up for one, and you set me up.
Well, not everything's awesome. So look at this. So we started a show. Jeremy started a show a year ago. Look at that. Look at his backdrop. That's a professional studio he's working off of, professional microphone. Look at my backdrop. That's freaking beautiful. That's the ocean. That's the beach. You're still using You're still using the same backdrop with the same headphones.
Yep.
And we're only getting a picture, the corner picture of Walt Disney.
Everybody knows what it is. Everybody knows.
I have another question for you. So, 4 days. Were you there for the full time?
Yeah, all days.
Legs were okay. Were you getting tired at any point?
Dude, I mean, people say you need to wear comfortable shoes. They don't make shoes comfortable enough for those floors. Honestly, somebody needs to make a shoe called the Card Show shoe that has some sort of cushion in there, some gel, something, because it doesn't matter what shoe you're wearing. Let's be honest, right? At the end of that day, if you're walking that concrete floor, your heels it's painful. It's just even sitting down at dinner after with sitting on a chair and your feet are on the floor, even you take off like 80% of your body weight from your feet. You just have like your shins putting weight on the floor. It still hurts. So yeah, it's tired. It's exhausting, especially after the end of the whole week. It's just, you're exhausted. Like Saturday night, I wanted to go do something. I didn't. I had dinner and I just went to my room and like laid on the bed, and that was it. I was done.
I hung out in the airport for 8 hours on Saturday night, Jeremy. Before my flight got canceled. It was pretty terrible.
So what was like one observation or one thing or one event, maybe one conversation that happened that might have changed your perspective on the hobby or in the hobby or about the outlook of the hobby?
Oh, good question, Andrew. Good question. I mean, the event of the national for me was the card ladder event at, I don't know what the place. Were you guys there? No, that was on the Wednesday. It was early. It was on the Wednesday night. And for me, it was the first night. So it was the first time seeing so many people in person. And I didn't know what to expect, but the people that showed up, it was like again, collectors, industry insiders, content creators, people that I wanted to meet were there, except for you guys. You guys were notable absentees from that show, from that event. Conversations that happened, plenty, man, plenty. I had sort of a station. So there's a company called Iconic Auctions. They're an auction house out of Arizona, and I'm really tight with these guys. And so they offered me a section of their booth because they said, hey, we think Sports Cards Live. And again, these are like my brothers. One of them is my brother, not from anyway. They're like, we think Sports Cards Live needs a presence at the show. I'm like, great. Okay, I'll get a couple banners made. I'll get a table, some chairs. And I had that. And I had so many people come up to my booth and just sit and talk to me at my table. And I had a ton of meaningful, deep, get to know you type of conversations. A lot of people who watch my show that came up and said, oh, I'm so-and-so on YouTube. It's so great to meet you. Conversations with people from a bunch of companies in the hobby. I had no less than 2 new grading companies that you haven't heard. Well, you might have, but that the general hobby hasn't heard of, come up and introduce themselves to me. Learning new things like that. I don't know, tons, man, tons. That
I didn't get there Wednesday, so I definitely would have gone to that. And one of the regrets that I had coming out of it, I didn't get to meet Chris Hodge.
You didn't, huh?
I saw Josh a couple times because he was at a table there, and I got to see him during the show. I did not see Chris, and that's definitely a regret. I definitely would have liked to have thanked him because that's some great content. We'll have you on. I get to thank you. You get some great content. I mean, those crossovers that he does with Josh, those are great. I mean, I basically spend 3 hours trolling in the chats. So, I mean, I got to thank him for letting me do that. I spend time trying to make him laugh.
You think that has something to do with why we weren't on the guest list?
Maybe. No, but I wasn't there. I didn't get there until Thursday.
Well, Chris was hard to track down. His booth, the card ladder kind of booth was very close to where I was. And, I walked by there several times and they just weren't there. These guys were out doing what they were doing. But, and Chris, I talked to him, every day. He's like, man, I still haven't been able to walk the floor. So, I think these guys, they put in their work late at night. They're still doing card ladder. So I think that took them out of the mornings. But yeah, great people. People say I'm tall. Chris is taller than you expect as well.
Wow.
Yeah, he's a tall dude.
And I met you, Jeremy. So, okay, that's shocking. That's shocking. Yeah. Okay, Cage, we have our hand cut out for us when we play them in 2-on-2 ball. I got to ask you about hockey cards. I'd be remiss not to talk about hockey cards because to me, this is the order. NBA cards are number one at the National, NFL. Then we have like this like kind of soccer, Formula One kind of, and then a distant fourth was hockey, but there were tables and booths where it's just hockey.
Yeah.
And is that how it's always going to be? It's very niche. Or do you see hockey maybe potentially getting into the mainstream down the road?
Yeah, great question, man. Well, let me just start. Okay. Basketball number one, I believe, but baseball a very close second at the National, not everywhere else, but at the National, because at the National, you've got dozens of old school vintage guys that take up huge booths with their vintage baseball. So baseball, it might be number one at the National, but I think the hobby overall is basketball is number one. So you got that basketball, baseball. Then, yeah, you're right. Then you got football. Then you probably got soccer. Then you've got hockey and then F1, I would say. And F1 right now, you saw a lot of it because the first two products really almost ever really just came out, right? But historically at the National, this was my 13th National. Historically at the National, it was baseball, then basketball, football, then hockey, and there was no soccer or F1. So that's kind of changed. But historically, hockey, I always came back telling my fellow hockey guys that, it's probably like 5 to 10% hockey. This time there was hockey there, but I don't even know if it was really 1%. There, like you said, you could go to a booth that had 8 showcases. There might be 2 or 3 hockey cards in there, some Gretzky, some McDavids, some Crosby, some Ovechkins. That was really what you were seeing. And then there were a couple of booths that had a showcase dedicated to it, but when I think about the math, when you say 1%, okay, that means 1 for every 100 cards in the room are hockey. That might be the ratio. So going forward in the future, Andrew, to your question, the big announcement that came out of the National this week was that, again, those arena design team, the arena design team, specifically Jean McLeod, is coming back. And she's working exclusively for Upper Deck. And Upper Deck has the hockey exclusives. And she's bringing back a lot of, I think a lot of basketball people are going to buy some hockey cards now simply because they want arena designs and products. So that might, I believe, help boost hockey cards overall. The other thing is that hockey is, I don't know. I mean, I don't understand why it's so unpopular. There's been 4 teams in the United States for 100 years or so. There are teams throughout the States. I watched the playoffs. You saw the crowd around the arena in Tampa Bay when they were going to the Stanley Cup Finals. There were thousands of people outside. So to me, it's one of those sort of hidden gems that could grow substantially. But a lot of people just aren't into hockey. So I'm not exactly sure what the future holds, but I love it. I think they're beautiful. We have the best patches in all of sports cards because the logos are so colorful. So there's nice cards, but you have to like it, right? You have to be passionate about it. You have to have a team at least, I feel. So time will tell. I'm hopeful.
So a few things from like a more business front. I have one final question. We're going to try to keep these to like 30 to 40 minutes, make them very digestible. So eBay came out with like I don't want to call it a data tracking tool and I don't even want to call it a card ladder competitive because that's truthfully not what it is. but for lack of a better word, I'll use that. How did those guys at Card Ladder, respond to what eBay announced at the show? Do you have any insight? Do you have anything? Because a lot of our audience are Card Ladder members and subscribers, so we'd love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, well, yeah, another great man. You're full of the great questions today. Well,
we did a little prep work for this one,
nice.
Just tiny little bit.
Nice, good job. It shows. Well, great. Yeah. So my thoughts on that are, first of all, Card Ladder, the guy, the team there. First of all, they haven't had time to respond or to come out with a statement or to talk about it. And are they going to? I don't know. It's probably not in their best interest to, but everyone's going to know about it. So a couple of key, for me though, I'll tell you a couple of key differentiators is number one, what I like about Card Ladder is that they vet the data. They actively search for auctions that show signs of, and I'm not going to speak, I don't know exactly what they do, but they vet the data for actual consummated transactions. And I think that's important. They call the data for the betterment of the hobby. I think that's really important. Is eBay going to do the same thing? Don't know. Are they Card Ladder also looks for shield auctions that just are outside the norm. If you have 11 data points and 10 of them the card sells for 1,000 and the 11th the card sells for 15,000, are you going to include that in the data set, or are you going to disclude it but maybe note it as right, omitted data point? They do that. They omit it from the graph or from the graph, but they still tell you about it. So they're not hiding anything. Some people don't understand that. Some people just don't. But that's what they do. And I think it's a humongous benefit that they do to the hobby by helping you call the data, so you don't need to do that yourself. The other thing that they do, and this is the key that I think will separate them from what eBay's doing, is that they bring in sales data from no less than 13 different platforms. Is eBay going to be setting up APIs with all the auction houses and all the other platforms? Right? You're shaking your heads. I don't think so either. So
no way.
Right. So while the eBay data tool will be helpful to many, it's going to be incomplete. And that to me is the hobby. The hobby is not centralized right now, and it doesn't seem to be going that direction. So without that, I think that what Card Ladder is doing is they're going to take that eBay data, but they're going to take it one step further and give us hobbyists a much more well-rounded picture of what's actually going on in the hobby. So,
especially since they are hobbyists themselves too. So, right, it's hard to believe that people at eBay will know what an outlier auction or an outlier sale might look like.
Yeah, and not only. Let me just one more thing, Andrew. Sorry, not only are they hobbyists, but these are people, with integrity that have the health of the hobby in mind. And I truly believe that. I have relationships with all three of them, and then there's Stiff Arm Wax, who does their production, who But yeah, the researchers, the principals of that company being Josh, Chris, and Christina. These are true hobbyists that just love the hobby and found a way to put their skill set to, first of all, find put their complementary skill sets together and build out this tool for the betterment of the hobby and for them to build a business and feed themselves. I think it's a wonderful thing.
Hobbyists until they weren't hobbyists and they got $1 billion buyout, right?
But then
it's no longer a hobby.
Well, but it is, right? It still is, because the hobby is, you have to, one thing I like to tell people and I like to put out there is that the hobby, it's more than, the hobby encompasses it all. It encompasses the flippers, the dealers, the LCS owners, all the ancillary services. The hobby includes the industry. It includes so much more. The hobby, as the intro song to my show says, it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle and it's a subculture. It's so much more than just collecting cards and binders like it was in the, up until the 80s.
I'm curious your take on this. So there was one booth that basically had a line spanning to like Jupiter, and the booth basically started at PSA and connected to Goldin. Okay. And I'm curious, with all of these mergers, do you think the hobby's in safe hands? You've been to 13 nationals. You've seen different landscapes. It's obvious that 2021 landscape is different from 2013 when Beckett shut down all the forums, which, if you ask me, I want to come back to, is very much on brand for Beckett. So little clap there. What do you think? Is this healthy for you, Cage? Any chance I get to take a shot at Beckett, not Dr. Beckett, the current Beckett, I will, with no shame.
I love it. It's amazing.
What's your take? Is this PSA Goldin merger and some other companies that PSA has stake in, is that healthy for the hobby? Is it reason to be a little bit concerned? Where do you stand on that?
All right. Well, okay. So here are my thoughts. First thing, it's not a merger. It's between PSA and Goldin, right? The holding company, Collectors Holdings, owns the shares of Collectors Universe, and it also owns the shares of Goldin. So, these two companies are part of what's called, as you will know, a conglomerate. So they're not. It's like Warren Buffett owns, the majority of Coke and Fruit of the Loom and Geico. Those three companies run independently with separate management, and they're not really commingling. Now, I'm not going to say that PSA and Goldin won't commingle because they're in the same industry. So there are going to be cards graded by PSA that will be sold on Goldin. So, but I think it's important. It's an important distinction that it's not a merger and it's not common management. It's common board of directors. And even then, there's going to be two layers of that. So that's one thing. Second thing, as far, Nat Turner acquiring PSA and then his group, I should say, acquiring PSA and then his group acquiring Goldin. Do I think it's healthy? I think him acquiring PSA is very healthy. That's something that I'm a big fan of because I'm a collector. And I know that Nat Turner is a collector. He just happens to be a well-capitalized collector who's had success, who's been successful in business. But I believe, because, as human psychology is to project. We project how we would be upon others. So I project how I would be upon him to a degree. And I think that, if I were to be in his shoes, I would do what's best for the hobby because I love it so much. And I've talked to him and I've heard him a lot. He, I believe, has that same outlook. He wants what's best for the hobby. When you invest $1 billion into an industry, you don't do that with the intention of, oh, hey, I'm going to tell them, hey, bump my card from a 9 to a 10. Like, what, like, is it worth risking $1 billion to make 100,000 on a card or 10,000? Is it worth risking whatever they paid for Goldin to have Goldin get preferential grading treatment? Now, they may skip the line, whatever, but are they going to get better grades because there's this common ownership at the top level, at the conglomerate level? That would be, do you guys and your audience in the hobby, do you realize how stupid that sounds, that people would do that? Would you really risk making a few extra grand on the buyer's premium for one card and risk $1 billion that you've invested to taint your reputation? It just doesn't make logical sense. Now, all that said, there is the perceived conflict of interest. It's perceived, and it's perceived by people who are looking out for the best interest of the hobby. We need both sides. We need people to be aware of this because we have to, the hobby has no regulation. We have to be accountable as a hobby. We have to keep those principles of the hobby accountable. But, if you were to bring in someone who wasn't in the hobby and they were going to run PSA or Goldin, I'd be much less bullish on the health of the hobby and the excitement. Now, is PSA going to make mistakes under Nat Turner's executive leadership? Of course. It's all right. Of course they are. People are going to make mistakes. Are they going to break the law or do nefarious things? I'm pretty hopeful, and I don't think that they will. Not on purpose. I'm
comfortable in saying they won't either. But you're right. The appearance of impropriety doesn't mean there's an impropriety there. I wouldn't even go as far as say a conflict of interest. The difference between what you mentioned and between Warren Buffett, right? Most of those companies are publicly traded. Coke doesn't operate in any kind of a shadow. But I did get to meet Nat, and I came away with a much better comfort level about how he's running things, about how PSA is going to come out of the operation closure and what they have right now. I agree with you. Having it in the hands of a hobbyist is definitely better for us all, I believe. Big picture. Yeah.
When it was announced that it was him, I became so, I've been bullish on this hobby my whole life. It's just who I am. It's been my lifestyle for so long. When I found out it was Nat, I became even more bullish because I'd seen him before he was, involved from a commercial perspective in the hobby. He was just a collector like you and me. And then knowing his background in that, I was like, okay, we are in good hands with him. The other thing I'll mention, when you look at Goldin, what I believe is happening at Goldin is that under the Collectors Holdings now ownership, they basically said, okay, Ken, you are the figurehead. You are no longer the CEO. You are the brand. You are, so we're going to put you out there publicly as they did at this show. I mean, I went to his booth. I went to his, when he put out his card that he was autographing. Oh, I want to go get one of those. I went to the booth. As soon as I got there and I tried to cross onto the carpet, this big security guy puts his arm out and goes, "Where do you think you're going?" I'm like, whoa, I literally took me aback, right? And Ken looks over and goes, "He's good." I went in. And so, I mean, that's all part of the character and the persona, I believe, that Ken is becoming. And, he's going to have this show. It's going to be called The Golden Touch. They're going to production in September. It's going to come out in 2022. I think it's going to be great. I can't wait to see it. But, what they're doing is they're making him the figurehead. And now they're bringing in some seasoned, not that he's not a seasoned businessman. He built this thing up, but they're bringing in some real executive leadership to run the company. And so I think that's, as far as Goldin goes, being kind of like the auction house that brings the most attention to our collective hobby. I'm glad to see that they've kind of moved Ken into the public relations sort of arena, and having that company being run by business leaders. So I'm bullish on it all. I think it's great. And I think that they're going to continue to run autonomously. And I think that it's in the best interest of the investors who have, now like $1 billion tied into these companies, to ensure that there is no nefarious activity going on, because that would just blow everything up. And these are smart guys.
I'm curious, if there was another merger, another acquisition, and when you said the word conglomerate, I thought back to the Wedding Crashers scene when they were like, let's be from Vermont and have a maple syrup conglomerate. And Cage would say, "That's stupid, Andrew. We don't know anything about maple syrup." So that's where my mind went. But like, if we're talking about a merger that might be beneficial for the hobby community, for the peons, as Cage calls me, like myself, is there a merger out there that you think would be kind of cool to see?
Great question, Andrew. I mean, I would love to see the card companies sub-license out to each other on some sports, so that we could get Upper Deck basketball cards, we could get Panini and Topps hockey cards, and all the other different iterations there. I'd love to see that. There's a lot of speculation what's going to happen with Beckett. Is Beckett ever going to are they going to ever be acquired by somebody else? Are they going to find, is their technology going to come out of the dark ages anytime soon? Because that would be great. It'd be great if their website could actually be usable and just not so clunky. I'd love to see that. But is there a merger? I mean, there's also been speculation that SGC was going to be acquired by Collectors Holdings, and maybe that becomes PSA East. That's one I'm not sure about. Need to think that through a bit more, how I would feel about that, because, we really have PSA at the top, and then you've got kind of Beckett beneath them, and then you've got everybody else, including SGC, the third, and then everyone else, all the others. And then you've got the 20 or so new companies that have come into the space in the last year. And my thoughts are, including your sponsor, HGA, my thoughts are that, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, I don't know that timeline exactly, but eventually, of all these new companies, they're not all going to survive. Maybe two survive, maybe one. And who's it going to be? It's going to be the one that really differentiates themselves and flaunts their competitive advantage to the point where the hobby values their slab. It doesn't matter how, in my opinion, it doesn't matter how nice and fancy your slab is. It matters how consistent you grade. And then it really just comes down to what the hobby decides. Yep. And that's so hard to predict. It's like the market. You never know what it's going to do one day to the next. It's hard to tell what the hobby's going to do 1 month, 1 year to the next. So down the road, who's going to survive amongst all these new up and coming grading companies? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
In my opinion, and this is what I think one of the benefits of the hobby is the hobby community is as engaged and as vocal as any community I've ever seen. I'll put it up against anyone. So the real companies have an advantage. If they listen to their customers, they'll more than likely be here to stay because they're going to listen and see, oh, this is what my customer wants. I'll deliver that product and they'll be happy. So I want to ask you something. You could completely pass on this question if you want.
Pass.
Like, you know Dr. Beckett. I don't know how well you know him, but you know him. He was the original founder of Beckett, right? And here I don't believe he's involved in the business, and he sees the business that he started be run into the ground. Seriously. What's his stance on that, right? Because it still has his name.
By the way, can you tell how Andrew feels about Beckett?
I can tell.
I mean, he keeps it close to his chest.
I'll contextualize it. I come from family business. So in a family business, when you don't respect your customers, they're just going to go to Starbucks or Wawa or Panera or elsewhere. So to me, you have to respect your customers. They're the ones that are paying your bills. And when I see a company time and time again just completely disregard customers, it leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. So that's where I come from.
No, okay. So I won't speak to that piece of it, but I will speak to Dr. Beckett and what I can. So yes, I do. He's been on my show 5 times, and I had dinner with him on Friday night at the show, or Saturday. I think it was Saturday actually. And I also do Hobby Hotline with him, which is a Saturday morning live show on another YouTube channel. So I have had lots, and we've had offline Zoom calls, and I look at him as somewhat of a mentor. He's a wonderful man, actually. So in my opinion, I'm not going to speak for him, but I don't know that he feels the same way you do. But again, he doesn't talk to me about that, so I don't know what he really feels about it. I think that he does recognize, though, that it's his name still on it, and I think he just wants what's best for the brand and for the hobby. And I've asked him on my show, like, if you were still running it, what would you do differently? What would you do if you had the chance? And he doesn't, the answers he gives to those types of questions are very just kind of neutral and politically correct. I don't know what it is for him, Andrew. I'm sorry. I really don't know what his.
It's a tough question. It's frankly a tough question. I didn't mean to put you on the spot either with it, because you don't want to speak for someone else. That's not fair to them. And if Dr. Beckett was here, I could ask him. But I'm just curious because you have such an esteemed reputation in the hobby, and so does he. And I know you've had him on the show. I was just curious to hear your take on it, and I appreciate you not dodging.
Listen, I have a reputation here. We're like 40 minutes into it. I've said like 4 words, and this has been a great interview.
Well, you just had McDonald's Uber Eats delivered, so you're kind of in like a midday food coma.
I don't want to step on this, right? But for those of our listeners who have listened for the full 40 minutes and are waiting patiently for me to do something stupid, here goes. Labatt's or Molson?
Oh man, for me it would. Oh man, be Molson for me. Yeah,
Molson. All right, fine. Do you have a favorite Hanson brother?
Are you talking about hockey or the music band?
Well, you can go whichever way you want. We'll learn a lot about you.
Yeah, the 2 Hanson brothers that I don't even know. I have a picture of me and all 3 of them from several years ago.
If you want to start singing Bop, that will be fine. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I can't even think of their names right now, but the ones that wear the glasses, those are my favorite.
So let's take it a different way. The Hanson brothers. Do we like Slapshot,
yes,
Youngblood, or the Mighty Ducks? Give me an order.
For me, it would be Youngblood first, then Mighty Ducks, then I like Slapshot, but it's not my favorite movie.
Dude, Youngblood. Listen, guys listening, real underrated sports movie.
Isn't that Rob Lowe?
Rob Lowe. Yeah, it was Rob Lowe. Real underrated Mustangs. He played for the Mustangs. Real underrated hockey movie. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this. Who's your favorite, Terrence or Phillip? Just kidding. You don't have to answer that. But I want to give you credit for making it almost an hour without saying the word A.
Thank you.
There you go. All right, Andrew, back to you. I had the, cage stupidity.
Did you ever get a chance to meet Wayne Gretzky?
I've not met Wayne Gretzky.
Well,
that's all I got. That's the only.
We're gonna make that work. We got
Yeah,
to
What
make
about
that work.
Drake?
Make it
What
happen,
about
fellas. Make it happen for me.
Who's the jersey behind you? Is that Teemu Selanne? What do we got going on there?
The jersey there is that's Teemu Selanne from the
There you
Ducks.
go.
Yeah,
Nice. Yeah,
that's an
Teemu
old
Selanne.
Winnipeg Jets 1.0. That's a Teppo Newman in game worn. But these gloves here, those are Teemu Selanne's game worn gloves from his first or second year in Winnipeg, where I was there. I went to all those games when he broke all those records in 1992-93.
Teemu was 92, but I actually bought hockey cards. Shaq and Teemu, 92, 93. That took it outside of baseball, right? Teemu Selanne, everybody was trying to get those cards.
Cage, Teemu is my all-time favorite professional athlete. He's my guy. Teemu's my guy.
Is there a story behind that, or?
Well, just that I grew up in Winnipeg, which is like the middle of Canada. We were a very underdog city. The Winnipeg Jets were our only professional team. They put us on the map. We were terrible for the whole time, and we had Dale Hawerchuk for a while. We were able to compete, but we were always beat by the Oilers, the Flames, the Vancouver Canucks. We couldn't get out of the Smythe division. And then in 92-93, Teemu Selanne joined the team and gave us hope and gave us something to be proud of. And he's just a wonderful guy, good dude, and broke all these records for rookie. And my dad had season tickets that year for me and him, and I went to every game. So every game where Teemu scored his 50th goal, which is a big milestone, 54th goal to beat Mike Bossy's points record, and I think it was the 119th point to beat Peter Stastny's points record. Sorry, the 54th was goal, 119 for points to beat Peter Stastny as all rookie records. I was at all those games, front row. When he scored, you guys know that scene when he scored his 54th goal, broke the record, and he threw his glove up and took a stick and did one of these. I was right there, guys. I jumped up on the boards, leaned over the glass, and was pumping my fist. I was highlighting my.
For people who don't realize, Teemu that was like hobby stuff. Like it was, you bought Shaq, you bought Up a Deck to get Shaq, you bought these cards to get Shaq. Teemu was Up a Deck card. That was a chase, man. I mean, people who did not play hockey, we started playing hockey in the streets with tennis balls. We started playing hockey, and I'm going to be Teemu Selanne. No, I am. It was legit. He was a legit phenomenon in 92, 93. 100%.
What kind of player were you, Cage? Would you just check everybody? You had a wicked slap shot. You were a goalie.
Every once in a while, every once in a while, people have this idea like, why don't we just stick pads on a sumo wrestler and stick them in the goal, and it's really hard. Like everybody thinks of that at some point. Why don't the hockey team just grab one of these sumo guys? That was me. It was very hard to get the puck / tennis ball past me. I was a goalie always. So
just to wrap, you mentioned all those nice things about Teemu Selanne. I want to mirror them because, you mentioned he gave your city hope. He's a great guy, nice guy, well-respected. I think a lot of the same things can be said about you in the hobby. I got to meet you briefly at the Blake Jameson event, but, today's episode certainly confirms that. You have wealth of knowledge you're willing to share. Give the hobby a little bit of hope, if you don't mind. I'm not going to ask you what inning are we in, but just from your conversations at the National, with people at the National, outside the National, at the events, where do you think we're headed?
I think the hobby is in a good spot. I think it's going to continue to grow. Here I can sum it up like this. As long as there are sports, there's going to be cards, and as long as there are humans, there's going to be collectors. So it doesn't matter what comes out. Doesn't matter. NFTs are not going to put a dent in this. NFTs are, I think. Anyway, I'll leave it at not going to put a dent in this. We love cards. They're beautiful. They're artistic. They connect us to our childhood, to our current sports, athletes that represent our cities, our towns, and that get us out of our seats when we're watching. And sports are such an ingrained part of culture, just like music is. I think we're, I don't want to say we're at the beginning, because we're not. These things have been around for 140 years, but I have no problem holding my cards through all the ups and downs, because I've been doing it for so long, and I've held them through the ups and downs. I'm going to continue to. And if you have a long-term horizon on the hobby, you're going to be just fine.
It's a great way. 1869 Cincinnati card. Remember that, Andrew? I showed you that. We were walking around the show. It's pretty crazy, man. 1869 Cincinnati Redlegs. You're right. 150, 160 years. This stuff's been around. It's pretty crazy. It really
It's not going
is.
anymore. Not going anywhere. Doesn't matter how many digital NFTs they throw at you.
And for our guys who haven't listened to you before, you've held cards through ups and downs. What are a couple of your favorites that are just going with you? You're either going to be buried with them or you'll pass them on to the next generation. We got a couple of cards. You got Gretzky, Lemieux. What do you got there? Timo Swann, 1992 Upper Deck.
I collect Hall of Fame rookies, all sports. So I mean, I have a 1933 Babe Ruth Gouting, the nice yellow one, number 53, in an SGC 5. I've had that for about 10 years.
Nice card.
I love it. I bought a PSA 6 Mickey Mantle 51 Bowman back in 2007. I overpaid at the time. Well, that's not an issue anymore.
It's true.
Right?
It's true.
Not an issue anymore. I have a 48 Leaf Jackie Robinson. I've had that. I think about that in 2013. I love that card. I've got, in hockey, we've got the early tobacco sets. They came out in 1910, 11, and 12. They're called the C55, 57s. I have all those sets. I bought my Jordan. I bought my PSA 9 Jordan rookie, at the National in 2008 for $1,000.
Wow.
So, $1,000. It goes up to 30, it goes up to 200 to 700, down to 200. One just sells for $8, which was a special copy. But, I really feel if you invest and if you collect to me, it's the same thing. Investing, I collect some cards because I know they're never going to be worth much, but I love them. And then I invest to collect in a bunch of others because I love them, but I know that I'm putting significant capital into them. You have to consider the investment potential when you're putting 4 or 5 figures into a card. If you buy good players and you buy good cards, and rare is so. I think what the hobby's learned, guys, in the last 6 months, the reason why we had this correction isn't because the hobby's crashing. It's because a lot of the people who've come in recently in the last 1 to 2 years have realized how important rarity is. Rarity, scarcity. That's what, whether it's manufactured or organic, that's what's important.
Is the Jordan Fleer considered a rare card?
No, but the perception is kind of that it should be rare, but in reality, it's not. No, it's not. I don't think people think it's rare. To find one isn't rare. There were tons at the show, but the PSA 10 is rare. There's only 317 or so copies, 318 copies. That's rare. So, but that's why that card is so expensive and that great, because it's so hard to find one. Only 318 people can have it, and a couple of people have 2 of them or more.
Yeah, there are people who have plenty.
Right.
Yep. Creates the scarcity there by grade.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. You mentioned NFTs. I saw a little vigor in your eyes, and I kind of want to dig into that. But today's show is about national, so we'll have to have Jeremy back on to talk NFTs. I can tell he's a big fan of them.
Yeah, he has a Beckett one to sell you.
I'm a buyer. Is it a one-of-one?
Listen, we'll give you the last couple seconds to take us out here. We appreciate all the content you put out. Let everybody on Luka Nation who might not know about your show or where to find you, let them know about your show, where they can find you. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate that a lot. My show, it's called Sports Cards Live. It's on YouTube. That's the name of the channel. I go live every Saturday at 10 o'clock Eastern for my early show. I do another late show called After Hours. It comes on at around midnight Eastern. And I also cover the PWCC Premier Auction once a month. I do a live show, whatever night that is. And then I also do live coverage of the night that their hockey auctions end, also on Sports Cards Live. I'm on Instagram, JLee _ Sports Cards Live. I'm on Twitter, Sports Cards LIV1. And I have a Facebook group called Sports Cards Live. Feel free to join the group, and I'll just admit you in. It's not a public group, but maybe it should be. But that's where you can find me, and I really appreciate the opportunity, guys. I've been fans of yours. I like what you're doing. I like the consistency with what you're doing. I like you guys, and it's just nice to be here with you today.
Thank you,
Jeremy. It was a blast.